Well guys, right away we have the interesting update from the Engels military airport of Russian Federation. The main base for the Russian strategic bombers like Tupolev 95 and Tupolev 160. Yeah, partially Russia removed those bombers to Alenia Airfield on the northern part of Russia, but still many of the bombers are based in Engels, and Russia even drove some of them right on the apron. Russia, you cannot fool us with that crazy drones. We understand that your airplanes are not parked there. But you know what actually parked there the last night? Well, some of the Ukrainian drones. And it seems like they hit the ammunition facility because they created this huge kaboom with this mushroom cloud. So far, it's the biggest registered kaboom happened on the territory of Engels and Saratov. Some of the local buildings were also damaged by a huge shockwave. It was really powerful. This is the private sector, small households, and here you can see the territory of the airfield. I think you may also spot the fence of the airfield. So yeah, the powerful kaboom hit even the local residential buildings hundreds of meters away from the epicenter. And I was watching those videos and looking for the possible location of the Ukrainian drone strikes in this airfield, and I found these areas. So the munition storage is located really not far away from the private buildings. And I'm almost sure that it's the exact spot where Ukraine hit Engels airfield, eliminating the significant amount of the Russian cruise missiles which they use against Ukraine almost every night. So as you see, the ammunition storage is placed for purpose over here, just not to touch the airfield infrastructure in case of those strikes. But Russians start to build some private sector here on their own will probably, but it was agreed with the local authorities. It means that they have huge risks living in this area. Yeah, it's better to avoid living that close to the Russian ammunition storage. Sometimes they just kaboom. So yeah, it looks like Russians didn't lose their airplanes this time, but they lost significant amount of weapons, cruise missiles, which is in a way more important. Russia is now very limited in producing the cruise missiles, and also the airport, I think it will stay out of the operation for some time, for several days at least. So the strike on the Russian airfield was the response of Ukraine on the Russian attack on Ukrainian infrastructure yesterday. And we have kind of the unique video from the yesterday's Russian strike on Ukrainian infrastructure. So here is the drone camera of the Shahid 136 drone, which Russia launched on Kropivnitsky, and drone hit the facility of the railway infrastructure, the local train station, with some of the trains being parked there. What was in those trains? Well, Russia says that it was the military cargo. From those images, it's definitely hard to say. What I say that those are the railways, this is the apron, and those are several of the trains here. Those look like the standard carriages, but I'm not sure about it, so this train was hit. So for Ukraine, it is actually important to eliminate the part of the infrastructure of the Russian military, which they use to hit Ukrainian facilities, and I guess it is understandable. But also it's important for Ukraine to apply drone sanctions on the Russian economy. So Kazanskaya oil pump station is still on fire on the third day already, after it was kaboomed by Ukrainian drone, or who knows, maybe even by modernized Neptune missile. And just now, my friends, while I'm recording this video, we have the information about the massive Russian drone strike on Ukrainian Odessa city. Odessa is a very important city for Ukraine from any sort of the perspective, but first of all from the infrastructure perspective, because the main port of Ukraine for now is in Odessa. And it seems like Russians are using some new tactics in their Shahid drone operation. I'll try to explain it to you here. So we have a Black Sea, we have a shore with Odessa city. Yes, I'm not good in drawing at all. So Russia launches their Shahid drones from Crimea. They fly towards Ukrainian coast. But they do not strike the Odessa city right away. No, their new tactics is to circle around in the safe, relatively safe area over the Black Sea. So Russians continue to launch them again and again, and all of those drones are circling and creating a huge swarm of drones. And later on, they fly towards Odessa city, yes, all of them, and they dive down from the very high altitude. The altitude is roughly 2,000 meters, which is roughly 7,000 feet. It is pretty much high for any sort of the machine gun to reach the Shahid drones. You can only do it, I guess, with Gepard system, Shilka, or some smaller air defense. But the usual mobile groups with pickup trucks, well, they're mostly useless. This new tactics is well known by Ukrainian defenders, so Ukraine should came out with something new to defend Ukrainian infrastructure against the Shahid drones. Well, I will tell you more. Russia is now capable to control their Shahid drones live with the help of the drone operators. Before, they put just geographical coordinates and the plan for the flight, but now it's not like that any longer. So Shahid drones are getting more sophisticated. Right, we have the breaking news. Ukraine actually struck the Russian gas supply hub in Sudzha, Kursk Oblast. Yeah, definitely a famous supply hub. Some of the experts before stated that it was the main goal for Ukrainian Kursk operation. Well, judging on this big kaboom, it seems like it doesn't exist any longer. And you know, guys, judging on what we've witnessed for the last couple of days, it seems like both of the sides, Ukraine and Russia, intensified their strikes on infrastructure. Yeah, it happened after the peace plan implementation. Remember how Donald Trump said, and he repeated the Russian propaganda, that Putin ordered to stop the strikes on Ukraine. And Russia even shut down their own drones. From the very beginning, my friends, I've told you that it was a bullshit. And I was right, as you can see, probably unfortunately, because Putin shows Donald Trump that no matter what he says, Putin has his own goals. And I think that Putin will not agree even on a partial ceasefire. He might say, actually he already said that he agreed on that, but in reality we see completely, totally different picture. And Ukraine, well, Ukraine cannot be silent. Ukraine needs to respond. And from what I see, Ukraine aims on military and infrastructure facility of Russia, not hitting civilian buildings. Yes, in Engels, those Russian civilian buildings were very close to the Russian ammunition facility, but it's not the reason not to strike that ammunition facility, because Ukraine should take care about itself and its citizens. The safety of the Russian citizens is the problem for Russia. And by the way, my friends, if you want to support the job that I do here almost daily on YouTube, please join my Patreon. I'll share the link for my Patreon page right in the video description below. Thank you so much for your awesome support. And again, Zelensky is kind of strong with his rhetorics. By the way, he met with the Finnish president of Finland. Here's their photo above, comparison for you to the photo below, a legendary meeting in the Oval Office and the meeting, I would say, between friends here on the top. And by the way, about the American ownership over Ukrainian nuclear power plants. Well, Zelensky clarified that power plants will stay and belong to Ukrainian people. And by the way, I also want to clarify here something. Yesterday I told that DTEK owns nuclear power plants. It is mistake, my friends. DTEK and oligarch Akhmetov owns just thermal power plants and some of the clean energy infrastructure. But nuclear power plants, all of them, are definitely owned by Ukraine, by Ukrainian government through the Energoatom Corporation. So, pardon, I need to clarify it, because Donald Trump actually wants to take those nuclear power plants from the Ukrainian government ownership, and Zelensky said already, no. As for the front lines update, guys, unfortunately I don't have the good news for today. What we have is just the enemy advancement in Zaporizhia village. Yeah, the name is the same as for the big city on the southern part of Ukraine, which Russia illegally annexed and put in their constitution on the paper. Their forces were not even spotted in Zaporizhia city, but they managed to take Zaporizhia village, a very small one, under control. Let's zoom out. So it was yesterday and it is today. They expanded this bridgehead and also expanded the gray zone here. And just to remind you, not far away from the spot, Ukraine recently was successful pushing Russians in Constantinople and towards Andriivka. And about the Kursk region, well, there is also an update yesterday and today, but this update actually happened like 2 days ago. Deep State just renewed it today. I already showed you the other military maps with the same picture. So yeah, Ukraine still keeps control over the part of the Kursk region. Ukraine is still there. But what's about Ukrainian Belgorod operation? Well, it is happening indeed, and according to the Russian military bloggers channel, Ukraine was able to get into the Davydov, creating the small bridgehead. Plus, Russians confirmed that they have some of the losses, but still I don't have the visual information of those from the drone videos. A spokesman or a spokeswoman of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Zakharova, already stated that Ukraine violated the partial ceasefire. But if you check out my video like yesterday and the day before yesterday, there I showed you the evidence that Russia started to bomb Ukrainian infrastructure immediately after the conversation with Donald Trump. So Russia stated that they agree on a ceasefire, and Russian media released that Putin ordered not to strike Ukraine, but they struck Ukraine several minutes after. And what Ukraine does, well, it is responding on the Russian attacks. That's it. So it shows us again that Trump, with his policy to sugarcoat Russia, he's just useless. And also, he's completely incompetent in those sort of the deals. Best deal maker ever. So if you want to hear my opinion, there will be no any sort of the agreement between Ukraine and Russia, and there will be no ceasefire. Or if somehow I'm wrong and ceasefire will be achieved, it will be broken down immediately by Russia. The reality is like that, my friends. And by the way, we have a new video released from Sochi. Here you can see a Russian gas hub center. It's been filmed from above, from the drones, and the fire is just enormous. You may check out the trees and local buildings, so definitely it is huge. I'm sure that this gas facility is no more. So even if Ukraine lifts the restrictions on the Russian gas export, it is now physically impossible to achieve without heavy maintenance of this hub. Davydov highlights Russian negotiations, calls Trump the ultimate decision maker. And you know, guys, this Trump's fixer Vitkov, he's not an official person even. He's just a random businessman, developer, yes, kind of rich, and also friend of Donald Trump. So Donald Trump told him, okay, go to Russia and discuss our partnership. So a couple of delusional merchants just try to negotiate with KGB agents. Wow, and they think they will win. I'll tell you how those negotiations are ongoing. Vitkov says, okay, Russia, we want to make business with you, business as usual. You want to lift sanctions and trade, but you know, we need at least a ceasefire for that. But Putin doesn't need that. He wants the war to continue. That's why he says, okay, it's the good proposal, but let's start business right now. You know, after all, it's just Ukraine, our ex-Soviet territory, like Ukraine, Russia, Russia, Ukraine, who cares? We're here to make business with you, business as usual. And Vitkov comes back to Trump with the eyes like that because he saw many of the zeros, like 11 figures, maybe even 12 figures numbers that United States might get in cooperation with Russia and obviously Trump personally, together with Vitkov and everyone out there. And they sit there all together in Mar-a-Lago or somewhere, and they think, okay, how can we get rid of the Ukrainian issue? How can we get rid of Zelensky? Because if we agree on cooperation with Russia just right now, we would face a huge backfire from our American society because they do not like Russia. So we need to change something. Bribe Zelensky, he's corrupt, bribe him, let him go away, but somehow they cannot do it. Guys, I'm 100% sure that it is happening like that, based on the information coming, based on Trump's rhetorics and how he really pushes Ukraine. So United States, they want to establish cooperation and business as usual with Russia. It's 100%. And Ukraine, well, it's just an obstacle. And it is obvious that Donald Trump also wants to take Russia from cooperation with China, which is absolutely unachievable thing. No, because Russia-China cooperation is really strong. Both of those countries are autocracies, they are neighbors, so they form in a way cooperation, and China supports Russia in the war against Ukraine. So how can you take Russia from China? It's like someone would come to a married couple and say, divorce, because I want to have friendship with you, and married couple would say, oh, yes, we'll divorce, you know, we thought about it before, and you came, you know, you Donald Trump, we love you, so we'll divorce. It's such a nonsense, guy. It's completely delusional policy coming from the White House administration. And unfortunately, because Ukraine is very dependent on the military support from the United States, we have bad news in general. But come on, still be positive, my friends, because you are awesome, I know that. We are on the Russian news now, and definitely Donald Trump says that the United States should build relations with Russia. Yeah, some of the advertisements here, sorry, I don't have the ad blocker. So Trump said that we should be dealing with Russia. They have the largest piece of land by far, bigger than China. They have 11 time zones. You can fly 11 time zones from one side to another. And they have very valuable earth. Here he meant minerals, rare earth resources, and so on. And Putin might even agree to cooperate with the United States of America to share its resources, because Putin and his oligarchs, they have already enough of everything. What they need is to occupy other countries to restore their Soviet empire. So basically, the proposal of Putin to Trump is a huge bribe for Donald Trump to cancel the military support for Ukraine, to exit NATO, and so on. Well, I hope United States will not support the Russian military after all, but even Rubio the last week had to clarify that the United States will not support Russia military, because everyone started to say that America is joining the Russian camp, and in fact, it is like that. Yes, with the current White House administration, I do not expect anything good for us in general, and by the way, for Americans as well. Well, more bad news should I say about those? Well, I have to. The European Union failed on $40 billion project to aid Ukraine, but there is an alternate. The alternate is actually very small, 5 billion euros. This initiative wasn't supported by a number of the countries. I was surprised actually to see France in that list. Well, maybe after all they have the other alternate, but obviously Ukraine should be supported by its allies in Europe, otherwise Europe may face definitely dark times. Alright guys, try to guess what is that. There are lots of the military vehicles, Russian-made, like Tiger vehicle, AMRAP of Russia, China Golf carts, and some of the artillery system, some of the Russian or maybe not soldiers. Well guys, all of that is the Chechen Akhmat battalion of Kadyrov. I don't know why, but they've decided to show it in Grozny, their mighty power with tons of the vehicles, which as you see are brand new, very clean and never been used on the front lines. Well, I guess that the general idea was to show how mighty Chechen battalion Akhmat really is. But instead there was just a harsh reaction from the Russian Z patriot community. Well, because the average Russian soldiers are in lack of that stuff. They used civilian vehicles for their attacks even. Like not long time ago I posted on my Telegram channel the attack on a white Niva. White freaking Niva. Not even been colored to other color, darker let's say, than white. And there was no snow, so the car was pretty much highly visible. And here Kadyrov shows us everything of that. It is crazy. So I went to the Russian military bloggers Publix and I read lots of the comments. I translated it myself using the Google Translate. All of those are the Russian Z patriots, and let's read their comments. Why not on the front line? You see the reaction? It's the real group. It's called Military Informant. Disgrace! There are lots of the MRAPs here and good weapons. The priorities are clear. Supplies for the Third Chechen War. Indeed, it could be correct. Chechnya has its own army again. War is bullshit. The main thing is maneuvers and parades. And it's just a part of those comments, just a small screenshot which fit my iPhone. So Kadyrov, in a way, he's really a Tsar of his own republic, but still he is really dependent on the Russian Federation and Putin. So there is still a confrontation between Akhmat and other Russians, let's say, or the Russian military. Remember how Ukraine went to Kursk and what conflict it sparked between Akhmat and Russian army. And honestly, I don't think that Kadyrov could be a next Prigozhin because he doesn't have that support among Russians. He has his support in his own clan and in Chechnya, partially. But indeed, he might spark the Third Chechen War because he wants to be cooler than he is, and he wants to take control over Dagestan and maybe Northern Caucasus in general. We'll see. So far I like that they argue between each other. Guys, in a couple of words about Tesla boycott and everything connected to that. Well, I do not support vandalizing anyone's property. It should be illegal. Well, if someone decides to crush his or her Tesla, it is okay. But if it is not the owner, no. But at the same time, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they call those people who do that stuff, actually it's bad stuff that they do, it's called vandalism, but they want to call them domestic the word that I cannot spell here on YouTube, just in case. Well, I do not agree with that term. I believe that those are vandals, maybe organized vandals, maybe organized criminal group or whatsoever, so they should be charged according to the current law. Donald Trump and Elon shouldn't come out with extra accusations for them. They're not persecutors. Only American court may qualify that properly, and I guess that it is called vandalism because no one was hurt there. Well, at least for this hour, there were no any casualties reported. So as for me, Tesla is one thing, Elon is the other thing. Yeah, Elon is the partial owner of the company, but it doesn't mean that the vehicles should suffer as well as the owners of those vehicles. And I do not see how it really resolves the problem with Elon. Moreover, it creates kind of the bad image for opponents of Elon and Trump. And I myself an opponent in a way because I do not agree with their policy. Luckily, I do not live in that country for now. But Elon wants to spread his ideas elsewhere to Germany, UK, South America, Brazil. Here we are speaking about global tech fascism. And here, by the way, the YouTube play button on the Fox News channel video illustrates that perfectly. It's just a joke, but behind the joke is the real evil. Right guys, it was a hard day, and finally I found a mic that I'll use in my videos from now on. It is the American-made Lotin Audio LS208, and I personally like how it sounds, so thank you for being with me and testing different microphones. Thank you for your feedback in the comments. And as usual guys, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.